Hi guys, welcome back to part 2, the history of JJ Rawlings. So, let's go to Google and continue with what I started. Alright, so guys, let's continue. 1981 coup and reforms. Believing the Liman regime to be unable to resolve Ghana's neo-colonial economic dependency, Rawlings led a second coup against Liman and indicted the entire political class on 31st December 1981 in a place of Liman's People's National Party. Rawlings established the Provisional National Defense Council (PNDC), military junta as the official government. Rawlings hosted state visits from revolutionaries from other countries, including Desi Buters, Suriname, Daniel Ortega, and Sam Nujoma. More famously, Rawlings reversed Liman's boycott of Gaddafi's Libya, allowing the Black Stars to complete the 1992 African Cup of Nations. The team won the AFCON trophy for the fourth time, their last win as of 2020. Although the PNDC claimed to be representative of the people, it lacked experience in creation and implementing their clear economic policies. Rawlings, like many of his predecessors, attributed current economic and social problems to the trade malpractices and other antisocial activities of a few business people. In December 1982, the PNDC announced its fourth-year economic program to establish a state monopoly on export-import trade with the goal of eliminating corruption surrounding import licenses and shift trade away from dependency on Western markets. Unrealistic price controls were imposed on the market and enforced through coercive acts, especially against business people. This resolve to employ state control over the economy is best demonstrated by the destruction of Makola No. 1 market. The PNDC established Workers' Defense Committees (WDCs) and People's Defense Committees (PDCs) to mobilize the population to support radical changes in the economy. Price controls on the sale of food were beneficial to urban workers, but placed undue burden on 70% of the rural population, whose income largely depended on the prices of agricultural products. Rawlings' economic policies led to an economic crisis in 1983, forcing him to undertake structural adjustment and submit himself to elect to retain power. Elections were held in January 1992, leading Ghana back to multi-party democracy. 1992 elections. Rawlings established the National Commission on Democracy (NDC). Shortly after 1982 coup, and employed it to survey civilian opinion to make recommendations that facilitate the processes of democratic transitions. On In March 1991, the NDC released a report recommending the election of an executive president, the establishment of a national assembly, and the creation of the post of prime minister. The PNDC used NDC recommendations to establish a committee for the drafting of a new constitution based on past Ghanaian constitutions that lifted the ban on political parties in May 1992 after it was approved by referendum. On 3 November 1992, elections results compiled the INEC from 200 constituencies showed that Rawlings NDC had won 60% of the votes and had obtained the majority needed to prevent a second round of voting. More specifically, the NDC won 62% in the Bro and Hafo region, 93% in the Volta region, and majority votes in the Upper West, Upper East, Western, Northern, Central, and Greater Accra ranges. His opponent, Professor Edu Boahen, won 31% of the votes. Former President Hila Lehman won 6.8%. Kwabena Darko won 2.9%, and Emmanuel Erskine won 1.7%. Voter turnout was 50%. The ability of opposition parties to compete was limited by the vast advantages Rawlings posed. Rawlings' victory was aided by the various party structures that were integrated into society during his rule, called organs of the revolution. These structures included the Committees for the Defense of the Revolutionary (CDRs), Commando Units, 31 December Women's Organization, the 4th June Movement, People's Militars and Mobi Squads, and operated on a system of popular control throughout intimidation. Rawlings held a monopoly over national media and was able to censor print and electronic media through a PNDC newspaper license decree, PNDC Law 221. Moreover, Rawlings imposed a 20,000 cedis, about 400 cedis, about 400, I don't know what that means, cap on campaign contributions, which made national publicity of opposition parties virtually impossible. Rawlings himself began campaigning before the official unbanning of political parties and had access to state resources. He was able to effectively meet all monetary demands required to a successful campaign. Rawlings traveled across the country, initiating public works projects and giving public employees 60% pay rise prior to election day. Opposition parties objected to election results, citing incidents of vote stuffing in regions where Rawlings was likely to lose and rural areas with scant populations, as well as bloated voters, registered and partisan electoral commission, as well as a bloated voters, registered and a partisan electoral commission. However, the Commonwealth Observer Group, led by Sir Ellis Clark, approved of the elections as free and fair, as there were very few issues at the polling stations and no major incidents of voter coercion. In contrast, the International Foundation for Electoral Systems (IFES) issued a report supporting erroneous in, claimed that erroneous entries in voter registrations could have affected election results. The, Cat, the, the Carter Center did not acknowledge minor electoral issues but did not see these problems as indicative of systematic electoral fraud. Opposition parties boycotted subsequent Ghana parliamentary and presidential elections, and the unicameral National Assembly, of which NDC officials won 189 out of 200 seats, and essentially established a one-party parliament that lacked legitimacy and only had limited legislative powers. After the dispute elections, the PNDC was transformed to the National Democratic Congress. Rawlings took office on 7 January 1993, the same day that the new constitution came into effect and the government became known as the Fourth Republic of Ghana. Policies and reform. Rawlings established the Economic Recovery Program (ERP), suggested by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in 1982 due to the poor state of the economy after 18 months of attempting to govern it through administrative controls and mass mobilization. The policies serve subsidies which favored farmers over urban workers and privatization of some state-owned enterprises and restraints on government spending. Funding was probably by bilateral donors, reaching US dollars 18 million US dollars in 1987 and 1988, and 900 million US dollars in 1989. I'm sorry if I said $800. I meant $800 million. Between 1992 and 1996, Rawlings eased control over the judiciary and civil society, allowing a more independent Supreme Court and the publication of independent newspapers. Opposition parties operated outside of Parliament and held rallies and press conferences. 1996 elections. Given the various issues with the 1992 elections, the 1996 elections were a great improvement in terms of electoral oversight. Voter registration was recompiled with close to 9.2 million voters registering at nearly 19,000 polling stations, which the opposition had largely approved after the party agents had reviewed the list. The emphasis on transparency led Ghanaian non-governmental organizations to create the network of the Domestic Election Observers (NEDO), which trained nearly 1,400 local poll watchers. This organization was popular across political parties and civic groups. On the day of the elections, more than 60,000 candidate agents monitored close to all polling sites and were responsible for directly reporting results to their respective party leaders. The parallel voting tabulation system allows polling sites to compare their results to the official ones released by the Electoral Commission. The Inner Party Advisory Committee (IPAC) was established to discuss election preparations and all parties and the Electoral Commission, as well as establish procedures to investigate and resolve complaints. Presidential and parliamentary elections were held on the same day, and see-through boxes were used in order to further ensure the legitimacy of elections. Despite some fears of electoral violence, the election was peaceful and had 78% turnout rate and was successful with only minor problems such as inadequate supply of ink and parliament ballots. The two major contenders of the 1996 elections were NDC, Rawlings NDC, and John Kufuor's Great Alliance, an amalgamation of New Patriotic Party and the People's Convention Party. The Great Alliance based their platform on Hudson Rawlings and attacked the incumbent government for its poor fiscal policies. However, they were unable to articulate a clear, positive message of their own or plans to change the current economic policy, as Ghana was heavily dependent on international aid. Local leaders had minimal impact on the economy. The Electoral Commission reported that Rawlings had won 57% with Kufuor obtaining 40% of the votes. Results by the districts were similar to those in 1992, with the opposition winning the Ashanti region and some constituencies in the eastern and greater Accra, and Rawlings winning in his ethnic home, the Volta region, and faring well in every other region. The NDC took over 134 seats in the assembly compared to the opposition 66, and the MPP took 60 seats in parliament. Thank you for watching the part 2 of the JJ Rawlings history. Stay tuned for part 3. Peace. I'm out.